Hello everyone, let's check out while loops in Python. In the previous video, we talked about if-else statements for decision making in our code. So what is a while loop? A while loop lets you execute a block of code repeatedly as long as certain condition is true. It's like telling Python, when this condition is true, keep doing this set of actions or keep executing this particular block of code. And the syntax of while loop looks like this. It has a while keyword and followed by a condition or an expression, and this condition or expression should evaluate either to true or false, followed by a colon and a code block which is indented, which is also called as the body of the while loop. Let's try to see a small example of this while loop so that we understand it better. I'm opening the Python shell. Let me initialize a variable and say its spam equals 0. And now I will start a while loop, and my condition or expression is going to be while spam is less than 5, and on the next line for the code block we need to indent it. While spam is less than 5, I would like to print hello world, and I increment the spam by 1. So this is my code block, and this is the while loop, and I have initialized spam to 0. So it will evaluate this condition or this expression spam is less than 5, which is true. While this condition is true, the code block will be executed. The code block consists of print hello world. It will print the hello world, and it's incrementing the spam variable by 1. So spam equal to spam plus 1. So which is 0 plus 1, it becomes 1. So once the code block execution is complete, it will again go back to the first line and check for the condition. So 1 is again less than 5. Again it will run this code block. Now spam becomes 2, and it keeps on repeating this code block unless this condition becomes false. This condition becomes false when spam is more than 4. So when spam equal to 5, so 5 less than 5 becomes false, and this will come out of the loop. So see, it has printed hello world for 5 times. So for 0 it printed once. When spam is incremented to 1, it again printed. When it is incremented to 2 and 3 and 4. When spam became 5, see spam file less than 5 is failed, and it came out of the loop. Now let's compare this with an if statement. Let me write the same code for an if statement. So I will tell spam equal to 0 and spam less than 5, print hello world, and I will increment spam by 1. It's the same piece of code which we had earlier, but I have replaced the while statement with the if statement. If I run this code, it has printed hello world only once, because if statement will only make a decision, meaning at this point it will check if this spam is less than 5. So 0 is less than 5, and it will execute the block of code, and at the end it will not go again and check for the condition. So it will go to the next line of the code. That's why it exited the if loop, and we have seen the hello world printed only once here. So this is the basic difference between the while statement and if statement in Python, and it's going to be the same in any programming language as well. So this is how the while loop works. It checks for the condition, and if the condition is true, it executes the code in the loop body. After executing the loop body, it goes back to step 1 again, and this continues until the condition is false. Now let's look at a practical example of creating a simple counter using a while loop. I started my Python shell again. So let me tell that count equals 0, and I wanted to count something. So I will use this while loop while count less than 6. I wanted to count until 6. While count less than 6, I'll print count is count. So we need to use f string for using the variable. So count is basically a variable. If we use f string and the curly braces around this variable, the value of this variable will be printed here. We will see. So initially it would be 0. So 0 would be printed here instead of this piece, right? So I'll say count is 0 and I will increment the count by 1. So we can use plus equal for incrementing this by 1 instead of count equal to count plus 1. We can simply use count plus equal to 1. So both will do the same operation. So basically what I am doing is I am counting something and I am maintaining that count in the variable count. So when the counting reaches 5, which is less than 6, I want to stop. The count is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has counted till 5, and for 6 it came out of the loop. This is the basic example of using a while loop. And in this code, one important thing to notice is that the count variable, which is also called the loop variable, and it's very crucial to update this variable within this while loop. In this while loop block we have to update this variable, or we might end up with an infinite loop. So let's say that we have while count less than 6, print count is count, and if this variable is not updated, again it will go to while count less than 6. So count will be always 0, and this condition will always be true, and this print will be printing indefinitely. So let us check that. Let me make count equal to 0 again. So if I just run this, so it's going to print count is 0 indefinitely. So it will never update the loop variable. So it's going to print this indefinitely. So I just ran enter. See, you can, if you come left, see the scroller is moving up. It's continuously printing this count is 0. And if you scroll it down, so it's all, for stopping it, we can use Control C. So when we use this Control C, this will send a keyboard interrupt error to your program and cause it to stop immediately. This is called infinite loop. Infinite loop meaning it's never going to stop. So you can also try creating a simple program of infinite loop in the editor and try to run it and use Control C to stop the program. And this is how the infinite loop looks like. So if there is any condition here which always evaluates to true, this becomes an infinite loop and it's never going to stop. And while loops are also great for creating interactive programs. So let's see an example of how interactive programs looks like. So I am telling my name as some empty, and I will ask user to input his name, and I'll check if the name is matching the name that I'm expecting. Until then, I keep on asking the user for name. So while name not equals Dinesh, I'll print please enter your name, and I will read that name into input. So it will ask for the user to type and take the input. So unless the name is typed as Dinesh, this keeps on asking for your name. Let's check that out. So please enter your name. I am entering Ram. So it is asking me to enter the name again because it this step is complete. So it has read that name into Ram, and again it came back to the first line and it's checking if the name equals to Dinesh. So if it is not equal to Dinesh, so this condition evaluates to true, and it's again asking for name. Let me type name as Joe. It's again asking. So what happens if I type the name as Dinesh, which is the expected name here? If I type, it will just come out of this loop. So this is how while loop also helps in interactive programming. Now what if we would like to exit the loop early? That's where the break statement comes handy. Break statements are shortcuts to getting a program execution to break out of a while loops class early. So if the execution reaches a break statement, it immediately exits the while loops class. In a code, a break statement simply contains the break keyword. So pretty simple, right? So let's write a small program that does the same as our previous program, but it uses a break statement to escape the loop. While true, print enter your name, and I will read the name into input. And the next thing is I will check if the name equals J, break. the name equal to j, it will break. That's it, right? So basically we are starting an infinite loop, which is while true condition. It will make the loop infinite, but there is some magic here. So we ask for the name, and name is being read into the name variable, and if the name equal to j, it will break, meaning it has to come out of the loop. So let us check that out. So enter your name. Let me enter Dinesh. So it's still asking for the name. Let me enter Ramesh. It's still asking for the name. So whatever the name we enter, it keeps on asking for the name unless it encounters the name j. So if I enter the name j, even though if this is an infinite loop while the condition is true, as there is a break statement of after finding the name j, it will exit the loop. So I entered j, you can see that the loop is exited. So that's the magic of using the break statement. There's one more magical statements in while loop: continue statement. So like break statement, continue statements are used inside loops. When a program execution reaches a continue statement, the program execution immediately jumps back to the start of the loop and re-evaluates the loop's condition. Let's use the continue to write a program that asks for a name and password. I'm starting the infinite loop, and the first step is I'll ask for the username. Who are you? I will read that user input into the name variable and then check if the name is equal to j, and if the name is not equal to j, I will continue and ask for the name again. So when it encounters continue, it will go back to the line 1 again. It will not go back to next set of lines, right? It will go back to the line 1. And if the name is j correct, then I'll ask for password. Hi j, enter your password. So I'll read this password from the user input into password variable. I will check if password is the password that I am expecting, which is fish. And if the password is fish, then I'll print the username and password is correct, meaning access granted, and I will break so that the loop will be executed here. So if I run this, it will ask me for who are you. Let me try to type a name which is not J. So let me tell Dinesh. It will again ask for the name. Unless we are typing the name J, it keeps on asking for the name. Let's say if I am typing J and it says hi J, enter your password. So let me enter apple as the password. So it's expecting fish. If I type apple as the password, it will go back again, because if the password is fish, then it will print access granted and it encounters break. But it's not fish, meaning this condition is false and it will not execute these lines. Instead, it will go to the line 1 and the condition is true. It will start asking for who are you. So let's type the name as J and password as fish. So if username and password are both correct, it says access granted and exited the loop. And this is the magic of using while loop, break and continue statements in the code together. There are the truthy and falsey values. So the number 0 or the decimal number 0.0 point 0 or an empty string or an empty list or empty dictionary or the value none, all of these are treated as falsy values in Python, and all the other values except these set are considered to be truthy value in while loops. So let us see an example of this. So I'll tell number equal to 0. So while here we need to write a condition. So 0 is a falsy value. So I'll say while not, I'll print enter a number greater than 0, and I will read that into number. So this is the simple loop. So I'm just using while not number. So this is 0 while not number, it will ask for a number greater than 0. So let's say enter a number greater than 0. What if I type 4? If I type 4, it is true. So it came out of the loop. meaning when it is 4 while not number, so number became 4 while not number becomes false. So this is how the truthy falsy values are used. So I'll use while empty list print I am inside loop, right? If I do this, it will not get executed because this condition is evaluated to false, because empty list is a falsy value, not a truth value. So in case of this empty list, if I use the list with some number inside, so it prints this because we ended up in an infinite loop, so it will print it. And let us do break after this. So it says I am inside this loop because this is the truthy value. So except these things, an empty string, empty list, or empty direct, none or zero, everything else is considered as a truthy value, meaning they will be evaluated to true. Say while 1, it's not 0, it's 1, I am inside loop, and then break. See, so 1 is evaluated to true, that's why it came inside the loop and printed. While an empty string, I am inside loop, so it never prints because this is an empty string which is considered as a false value. So while the condition is true, it will execute the loop. So as this is false, it never came inside this loop. So let us write a simple code block which is like a game for guessing a number. So we are going to use while loop, if else statement, continue and break statements as well. So I'll import this random library, and I will assign a number from this random random integer between 1 and 20. So random will generate any random number between the given range, and I am telling random integer randint, and I will start an infinite loop, and I'll tell that thinking of a number between 1 and 20, can you guess it? And I will read the guess from the user input, and we have to convert that input to an integer because we are comparing it with the number, and then we will check if the guess is less than number, will print your guess is too low, try again. And we are going to use continue. Else if guess greater than the number, printing your guess is too high, try again. Then we continue. Else print good job, you guess the number, and then break. So if you see this code, we have this infinite loop, and we are reading an input from the user, and we are using a continue statement, we are using a break statement, and we are using if else as well. So this is simple piece of code which is a number guessing game. So basically if I run this code, says I am thinking of a number between 1 and 20, can you guess it? Let me say 15. So it says that your guess is too low, try again. So 15 is too low, so the number is much more than 15, let me try 20. So it says your guess is too high, try again. So it's not 15, it's not 20, it's something between 15 and 20. Let me say 18. So it says that your guess is too high again. So it's between 15 and 18 again. Let me say 17. 17 is also too high, it could be 16 then. So it says good job, you guessed the number. So this is how we can use the while loop, continue, break, if else, everything together within the code. And this is how the practical code looks like. And this is all about while loops. So just to reiterate, so the difference between the while loop and the if else statements. The while loop will repeat a block of code and continues that as long as certain condition is true, meaning the while condition is true. The while loop is used for iterations, basically for repetitions, and while loop can run indefinitely. It can go into infinite loop as well. Whereas the if else statement executes code based on conditions, and it will run only once per evaluation. So if the condition is true, the code will be executed and it will never goes back and check the condition again. And if else is always used for decision making, and it's always finite execution. And a single word while loop is used for repetition, and if else statement for decision making in the code. So to conclude, while loop will allow you to repeat code based on a condition, making your programs more dynamic and interactive. And break and continue are the important keywords. While using break statement allow you to exit a loop early, and continue statement lets you skip to the next iteration of a loop. And try creating your own while loops and see what you can do with them. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below.